So let's talk about retouching faces. I do want to just mention before we retouch this face that this isn't a commentary. I'm not saying that this person needs to have their face retouched. I don't think they do. I'm not promoting retouching. I'm just simply trying to show you guys the techniques in case you want to do it. But it is something I want you to think about, and I want you to think about it for your project this week with a distorted beauty. Have we gone too far with retouching? Can you make a face that looks so perfect that we're not sure if it's real or not? All right, so we're going to start with some tools. And the ones that we're going to look at in this video will be the spot healing, the healing, and the patch tool. The spot healing brush is a magical brush. It will just, you can click and it'll get rid of things. But I would like you to do this non-destructively. So before we get started, create a new layer and make sure up here in the options bar you have sample all layers checked. That means that even though there's nothing on this layer, it will sample from the layer below. So to use this tool, you want to make sure that the radius of your brush is slightly larger than the spot you're trying to heal, as Photoshop says, or essentially clean up. If it's too small, then Photoshop doesn't have enough of the other skin tone area to be able to sample from. What it's looking for is kind of a little bit of tone that doesn't seem to match, and then it's going to match it with everything outside that. So when I click, it simply clones it in and then blends. So it works very, very well. So you can just go around and clicking on any sort of little spot that you want to get rid of. And it's also all non-destructive, so it's all on its own layer, and I can bring that back. All right, but if you have an area that's similar, but maybe a little bit larger, and you want to be able to kind of paint it out like you would with a clone stamp tool, you're going to use the healing, this one here, the one that is the healing brush. And just before I do that, I want to show you the difference between clone and these healing brush tools. So if I took the clone stamp and I hit Alt up here to sample this spot, it's just going to paint in, right? Unless I lower my opacity up in the options bar, it's going to paint in. If I take the healing brush tool, it works in the exact same way. I hit Alt and I sample. I'm going to make my brush a little larger. And then I paint in. But you see how it's blending with the white behind it. So that's why this is a really good brush for faces, because it does blending instead of just simply copying and pasting over. All right, so with this brush, the healing brush tool selected, I'm going to make the radius of my mouse smaller, and it is still holding a sample of the last thing I sampled, but as soon as I sample a part of her skin, that'll go away. And what I want to do is I want to get rid of the mole here, so I'm going to sample the skin just below. So Alt, click, and then I'll come up here and I will paint that away, and then maybe come over here and sample that and paint that away as well, and maybe do a little more retouching, get rid of any dark spots until that's gone. Okay, so the only difference between these two tools is this one you just click and you just want to make sure you're doing it on a separate layer. This one you hit Alt to sample the good skin tone and then you paint it in. Both cases I am doing it on a separate layer, and in this one with the healing brush tool I just made sure where it said sample it was on all layers. Okay, so the last tool is the patch tool, and this is for larger sections. With this tool selected, you want to make sure in the options bar you are on source. And notice it has those same kind of icons like you have in your selections, so you could add to or subtract from your selection. And what I want to do is select the spot that I want to patch by just clicking and dragging around it. And then I put my mouse in and I'm going to take that selection, I drag it out, and it lets me see what would it look like if I put these different parts in that selection. So if I put her eye there or her lip, okay, that's not what I want to do. I want to pick a skin tone that looks good and it's similar to the area I'm trying to patch. And then when you let go, it blends it in. It fills it in and it blends it. All right, so I do Control D to get rid of that, and you can see it did a good job. I'll do one more over here. So I put it in there. Then I put my mouse in. Oops, I don't want to do that. And I drag it out. And I like the way that looks, so I let go. and it takes it, fills it in, and it blends it out. Okay, so a good challenge would be just keep going with this image, go between those three different tools. Remember, when you're working with these two, that you make sure that you are working on the top layer. Definitely when I'm looking at your projects, I will be turning off layers and making sure that this is as non-destructive as you can possibly make it, so that all your edits, if possible, are on another layer.